Hello guys, and welcome to this new video. So we will watch today the game between Wesley, the American player born in Philippines, which is playing against Maxime Vachier Lagrave, the Frenchman. So it's a player I played a few times in official games when we've been youngsters, and I'm really glad to see he made a great chess career. The first game was a draw, and so Wesley has the white pieces. It's clearly an advantage. So it's a game that is to qualify for the quarterfinal of the World Chess Cup. So a very important game. Knight f3, c5, c4. So this is an English opening, seizing the center with white now. Knight f6, knight c3, e6, bishop f4. All that was played before d5, taking the center, e3, protecting the pawn, bishop b4, bishop e2, castle, castle, bishop takes c3. So here black exchanged the bishop against the knight. Of course, the bishop is, people say bishop is slightly better than the knight, and this is true most of the time, especially when the position is opened. But here, you give up the bishop for the knight, but you get an isolated pawn on c3, because, those pawns are doubled now, but one day or another they are going to be exchanged, the c4 pawn against the d5 pawn, and it will stay with this pawn on c3, which is not a really good pawn. So, you gave up your bishop, but you shattered the pawn structure of your opponent. So all that logical somehow. Rook to e8, centralizing the piece. And here white goes bishop g5. The thing is that black here might want to play... so white went bishop g5. Black might want to play the move e5 here. It might be a threat. Just look. On the last move, if you go pawn to e5, it's met by knight c6, pawn c6, and bishop takes e5, right? So you are just losing a pawn. Now with rook e8, black probably wants to play e5. So you could try to play... so he plays bishop g5, could try to go bishop g3 as well, but it's met by knight e4, which is really annoying, threatening the pawn and the bishop. So white decides to make one move, two uses, bishop g5, so he gets the bishop away. So now e5 is not a problem anymore, and he pins this knight. So it's a two-in-one move, a bit like a shampoo. So knight is pinned, here black goes h6. So a good move, asking the question to the bishop and getting a square for the king. And here it's a big decision for white. I think, okay, he played bishop f6. I don't really like to exchange the bishop against the knight, not shattering anything, not shattering the pawn structure. Things after bishop h4, he might have been afraid of some okay, two solutions for black. He can go g5, a move that is popular lately, bishop g3, pawn to e5, knight c6, bc6, by example, take and take. I said a popular move lately because people don't seem to be afraid anymore to open up the king like that. So black has a strong center and a good pawn structure. Except I don't really like to neck my king. But the pawn on c3 is weak, and those two pawns in the center are really giving a good hand for black on the game. So this was a possibility. Or he could go knight to e5, pawn takes, and queen b3. So that was the other option to play for black, but here I slightly prefer white because it has the bishop pair, and I can see some troubles on those two pawns, b7 and d5, though it's still unbalanced. White goes bishop f6, not a bad move either. Pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, queen to b3. So he's adding up pressure as well on the pawn d5 now. Rook d8 and bishop to f3. So very big pressure on the pawn d5 now, attacking two times its different pawns. So black has two options here. Either he goes queen d6, passively defending, by example rook fd1, knight e5, and bishop e2. So just defending the pawn with the queens, maybe not ideal for the moment, but the queen might go to c5 later on, and we could add the pressure on c4 herself. Also, it might be a good square for the knight. So this is an option to defend the pawn. So just defending by queen d6 and follow up with knight e5. So queen d6 and knight e5 to follow up and attack the bishop. Or you can play as it was played in the game, knight a5, threatening the queen, queen to b5, and queen to b6, forcing the exchange. Now, if white would decide to play the move rook to b1, I don't know what the big deal is with rook b1. I mean, rook b1 might be a decent move as well. The only reason why you don't play that is that queen b6 is just better. I mean, you can go, you can go rook b1 and your opponent goes, by example, queen c7, attacking your pawn. And after bishop takes d5 here, black goes a6 and your queen can't stay to protect the bishop. So you're not really winning the pawn. And I mean, queen takes b6 is just a good move. So queen takes, pawn takes. And the thing is that the pawn structure for black now is really bad because you have those double isolated pawn on b6 and b7. So it's a really good way to attack for white. I mean, the half open b file is wide open. It's a good way for white to put up pressure on him. And we can say that white has a slight advantage here due to this weakness. So white goes rook fb1. You want to keep the a rook here because it defends the pawn. So this is one of the cases when you love to bring the f rook. Knight to c4, defending the pawn from the c4 spot. So this is the defending idea of black. That the knight on c4 is good and it's not that easy to make progress with white. Rook to b4. So maybe preparing now a4, rook b1, maybe bishop e2, adding a pressure on the knight. Black goes rook to a3, stopping the pawn and attacking the pawn. Knight to b5. We protect the pawn and we attack the rook. Rook a5, pawn to h3. So here I would probably better play a4, but we watch the move a4 on the next move. So let's not spend too much time into analysis. Pawn to h3, bishop d7, and now white is going to take the pawn, and we'll see it's a bit crazy what's going to happen next. But the move like a4, as I mentioned just before, would let white with a slight but clear advantage, just because the pawn structure is better. I mean, those two pawns are weak, but black has 3 weak pawns, so it's like one weakness less. This bishop, light squared bishop, is better than the light squared bishop of black because white is attacking a pawn with this bishop while black has to defend it. So slightly better pawn structure, slightly better minor pieces. This is often linked, by the way. So I mean, white is slightly better. Just have to play and play and play on. I would say you have like 80% of chance to make a draw, 20% of chance to win. Maybe you have 30%, 25%. I don't know. It's just estimation. But I mean, you will put some pressure on the black side, and maybe you will go through, or you will play some rapid chess. Wesley so is very good at that, and Maxime as well. So this is an option. Though he goes bishop takes d5, and now what's happening is really crazy. The thing is that I believe, and I mean I'm not the only one, the commentators said the same, and it's logical. Wesley probably thought about knight takes e3, pawn takes e3, bishop takes b5, and bishop takes b7, staying with the pawn up. So he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and black has 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns. And so this is really a clear advantage now. White is, well, it's not winning, but I mean, it increases the chance. If it was just 20% before, it's like 50 or 60% chance to win now. White has a good advantage. It's a pawn up. Well, it's never easy to win rook endgames, but this is clearly what you love to see after 22 moves with white. Sorry. But Maxime plays here the move knight to e5. And it's really strange, but white cannot save its piece. White here is losing a piece. So black is attacking the knight and the bishop is behind. So those two pieces are like X-rayed. And the thing is that anything you attempt to do to save the day is losing. So by example, we go knight c7. Your knight protects the bishop and your knight went away. Black simply goes rook c8. And on the next move, you have to move the knight and it takes your bishop. So you are losing a piece. If you go knight to d4, black simply takes the bishop. I mean, this is pretty much obvious. So you're losing a piece. And if you go c4, that looks a good attempt because you defend both pieces. Black goes bishop b5. You take back the bishop. He takes your rook. You take his rook and he takes your bishop. And you lose a piece. So all those moves are losing a piece. In fact, you cannot save the piece. The best way to play is the way Wesley so played. But I think he found it now. I mean, I don't believe he went for that, playing bishop d5. So the only move is rook e4. Now you attack the knight. The knight goes away to g6. You take the pawn on f7. He takes back. You take on d6. You play knight e6 check. The king moves away and you take the pawn on b7. So somehow you saved, I mean, you won 2 more pawns, so you won 3 pawns for the piece. Though now black is better. I mean, being a piece up with those, let's say, weak pawns, probably the 2 pawns on the queen side will just exchange against 1, and we will stay with the 4 against 2. And well, it's you still have draw possibilities here. You can still save the day, but you are clearly playing just for 2 results now with white, which means a draw and the defeat. So you are just saving to save your ass to make it through the rapid games. Here black plays a strong move. He goes bishop c6 because this is a fork now. So bishop c6, straining the knight and the rook. Rook to d4, rook takes d4, knight takes a5, so going to some exchanges. Rook d6, the only move. So you protect your rook, which was attacked, and the bishop. So you have 2-piece attack. If you take the knight, it takes the rook. So rook d6, knight c6, rook c6, threatening the c3 pawn. So here, it's a bit stupid to play rook c1. Sorry. I think because one way or another you're gonna lose those pawns, like knight e5, and anyway he's threatening some knight d3 already and knight b4, so harassing your pawns. Like let's say you play king f1, he goes knight d3, you try to keep your pawn, he's attacking your rook, and one way or another he's coming with the 2 pieces to attack your pawn, and then you are losing it. And probably you will lose the a2 pawn later on. So Wesley so decides to play pawn to a4, rook takes c3, and pawn to a5. This is a really wise way to trade those 2 pawns against 1. So now if black decides to keep the pawns on the board, we are just able to play rook b1, straining the pawn, and if rook c5, pawn to a6, and well, the pawns somehow are going to be exchanged. The black doesn't want to get into those complications. Rook takes c1, and we'll get to our next critical position very soon. Rook c2, king g3. So black is putting pressure on the f2 pawn. Don't forget, I mean, it will be maybe it will sound a bit too common or too easy for you, but the pawns don't go backwards. They only advance, and in order to create weaknesses, black needs to force white to push a bit its pawn because they are too far away to be attacked. So we need them to be a bit pushed in order to create more targets to get inside the white position. So that's why we bring the rook to c2, and that's why white is simply defending with the king, because he doesn't want to push the pawns. So if black wants to win, he gets to bring this knight to somewhere in order to attack the pawn. So he goes knight f8. And now the path is pretty clear. Knight d7, knight c5, knight d3, and go for the weakness on f2. White goes h4, seizing space. Knight d7, king f3, king h7, so improving the position of the king, and rook to f5. So white is deciding with the move rook f5 to defend the pawn on f2 and try not to move anything. Just stay like that with the pawn structure like that and just don't move anything. Of course, black doesn't want to trade a pawn because the less pawn on the board, the harder it will be to win the game. So he just wants to stay like that. He plays rook f5, knight c5, pawn to g4. So he's keeping the pawns. I mean, pawn to g4, it's maybe not really needed, but I mean it's not really weakening. This pawn is not too weak. The thing is that if you start to push the f pawn, then the e pawn is committed. Here he maybe want to play h5 and keep those pawns like that. Though I would not have moved the pawn myself. I would have waited somehow. But okay, g4 is also an interesting move. So knight d3, king g3, pawn g6, rook f7 check, king g8, rook f6, and king g7. So what he's trying to do is to force this move to move away from the f file, because if it moves away, then I mean you are forced to push this pawn and create some more weaknesses. So as we talk about. Here we understand why white played g4, because he wants to play g5 now to enforce the rook on the f6 square. The thing is that he's missing here a very beautiful defense. He's missing rook to a6. This is a concept you might have seen before to give checks from the long distance against the king, because it's hard to cover the check when the rook is so far away. It's something you can use not in the Lucena position as the final position we learned where you made the bridge, but if you go like 7-8 moves before that, sometimes there is a possibility to defend from the far side. Here it's a bit the same concept. So let's check out what happens if we take the pawn. So if black takes the pawn by knight to f2, white goes rook a7. Oh no, let's go with rook f2 first. Let's go with rook f2. Sorry. So white goes rook a3, threatening the knight. Black's forced to play rook d2, protecting the knight and saving the rook. White goes rook a7 check, and here the king has a lot of trouble to get away from the checks. So the king goes close to the rook. The only way to get away from the checks is to bring the king to b7. And now when the king is close to the rook, white goes rook h8. And of course he gave up a pawn on f2, but now the king is 1, 2, 3, 4 moves away from coming back to defend the pawns, and white would just be able to grab those two guys. So after the move rook takes f2, sorry, let's go. Okay, so after rook takes f2, rook a3, forcing the rook back to d2, and then we go checking. If black plays knight takes f2, this is more tricky. Rook a7 check, king f6, rook a6, king e5. So black is trying to play actively here. White takes the pawn on g6, knight e4 check, forcing king h3, because after king f3, the move rook f2 is just doing the job. So white goes king h3, rook to e2, rook takes h6, rook takes e3, king to g2, king f4, and rook h7 by example. This is really scary, but it's not sure black can give a checkmate here. If we can trade the if we can get away from this dangerous situation, then it will be a draw with the rook against the knight, and I mean the rook and the knight against the rook is going to be a draw if we can get away of this dangerous situation we are having here. but it seems white just holds it. Though let's wait for maybe very strong computer to analyze that for hours and give us a clear solution. So it's a very risky way to play, but this is the best defense, to go rook a6. And so black could go after rook a6, rook c7, but here rook d6, and you should say that the pressure on f2 is just gone, and it's going to be hard for black to find another plan to win the game. So maybe we'll try to turn around, and wait for white mistake, but I mean, this is getting easier for Wesley so to defend. But he went pawn to g5, and now very importantly, black doesn't trade the pawns because you want to keep pawns on the board. He plays pawn to h5, so now h4 becomes a weakness in some position, and now maybe the f5 spot is good for the knight, looking at this pawn on h4. I mean, this is a very big concession white just done. So white goes pawn to f3. If you go king g2, by example, rook c4. So I mean, king g2 is the idea, just not to touch anything. Now rook c4, now we have a second target. King h3, rook c5, king g3 is a mistake because of rook f5 going into a very good endgame for white, as the knight will go sitting on g6 and watching at the h4 pawn and the king run forward. So this endgame is winning. So black after rook c5 has to stop rook f5, and he has to play pawn to e4 here. Black goes rook c3, pawn f3, and knight e5, and we will see that it transposes into the game. Black is forcing white to push its pawn. So let's go back to the game. We'll have the same position. So he goes f3, knight e1, threatening maybe some rook g2 check, e4, rook c3. So no, rook g2 was not a threat. I knew that. I don't know why I said it's rook g2, but just maybe too much bullet yesterday. So rook c3 now, looking at the f3 pawn. King f2, knight d3 check, king g3, knight e5. So that's the position we had earlier in the line I just showed. So the knight and the rook are attacking the pawn on f3. But more than that, the idea of black is to play here rook c6 and force the rook to be exchanged. So now, if white is refusing the exchange and go rook to f4, which is the only way to refuse the exchange, black goes knight d3, and this rook has absolutely nowhere to go. So the rook is pretty much dying. You see, everywhere I'm controlling you. So the rook is dying here. So white has to trade the rooks and go f4. So those two pawns are really important because they are stopping the entry square for the king. So the king has to go a long way to hope coming through. Could go back like that. So king f7, king f3, king e6, king e3, king d6, so going through the door, and king to d2 is going to try to close the door. Here, if you go pawn to f5, black takes the pawn, you take back, he goes king to e5, strengthening your pawn. So if you go g6, king f5, g7, knight e7, so knight is just doing good to defend the pawn. Remember that an h-pawn with a knight is always queening, so it's no problem here for black. So you go pawn to f6, black goes knight d8, stopping the pawn, king f3, king f5, stopping the pawn again, king e3, knight to e6 now, replacing the knight. So if you push the pawn, it's a bit stupid because you are losing the pawn in 2 moves. The square is protected. So you go king f3, knight f8, king g3, knight g6, attacking the pawn, king h3, king f4. So now you cannot go backward because I'm taking your pawn. You are in a zugzwang. The only thing you can do is push f7. And now I can simply go king f5 now that I forced you to push. So I came to force you to push, and now I'm just going back to win the pawn, and I will come back later on to win the h4 pawn. Just going to grab the pawn on f7, and then I'm coming back at you. You cannot go to f4. You have to let me enter And again, we find ourselves in the exact same position as we had before. Just now you don't have pawn f4, so it means I can grab your pawn, then grab the pawn g5 and win the game. So white doesn't go into that. He goes king to d2, king c5, king d3. So you really don't want to let the king enter to d4. King b4, king d2, king c4, king e3. Here you cannot go king c3 to keep it going. Well, no, you can. Just I guess he was maybe afraid of some pawn pushing, maybe. Might be a bit scary. This might have been a bit scary though. Black is still winning like that. So well, he could have played king c3 and then king d4. But well, there was some f5 as well. So it seems it seems king c3 was also a decent move. I didn't watch that while I analyzed the game, but it seems another way to win it. Because now if the king goes on f3, we are just pushing king d4. So he probably miscalculated something. He went king c5 back, king d3, knight d8. Just he found another winning idea. You will see really elegant. So now if white goes f5, knight to c6 back and knight e5. And I mean, when we get this square, we are winning the game. So this is winning. Now, if you go by example, pawn take, knight g6, king f5, knight takes h4, king f6, showing you a beautiful line, king e4, pawn g6. So you hope to take the pawn, knight takes g6, king g5. So it looks like you get the pawn because you straight the pawn and the knight, but you're pawn to h4 and you cannot take the knight because the pawn is going forward. So this is not working. This idea is not working. So black goes king to e3, white goes king e3, knight f7. So replacing the knight again, now f5, knight e5 all the time. King d3, knight to d6, bringing the knight to attack the pawn. King e3, king c4, pawn f5, and here Vachier Lagrave is finding the move of the day. This is study-like move, so I will show you the wrong variation and then I will give you 10 seconds to find. So the thing is that if you take the pawn, white goes king f4, you have two options here. You can take with the pawn, white goes g6, you go knight e8 to stop the pawn, king e4, king c5, by example, king e5, stopping the pawn, king c4, king e6, king c7, king e7, knight g7, and then the knight is attacked, and you just have to draw the game. For example, king g5, and we go to win the pawn. So white is just going through attacking the knight in this variation if you take with the pawn. If you take with the knight, then a very important move is that if you play king f5, it's met by... No, king f5 is okay. King d5, pawn g6, knight d6 check, and king to g5, and we go to win the pawn. Sorry, just was wrong. So this is drawn as well. Now, so f5. If you take king f4, and then either way, this is drawn. And if you don't take, what black is retaking, white is retaking, pawn g6, king g5, and king h5. So this is the idea for white. So here, after f5, I give you 10 seconds to find the good move. I think you would need more time, so don't hesitate to pause the video. Okay, and here the winning move is knight e8. The thing is that if you take the pawn as happened in the game, black is going knight g7, and we will watch that the king has no entry squares because those two squares where it could enter would be covered by the king or by the knight. And if you go pawn to f6, black is going now, well, it could go knight c7, king f4, king d4, f7, and knight e6, stopping the pawn, and then we'll be able to get inside with the king. By example, king here. We could go king to d3 now. If you push the pawn, king d4, and we win it, and then we go back to win the f7 pawn. And if you go king g2, we simply take the pawn, and then we will have time to go back to win the pawn and then come back with the king. So you have to take on g6. And the thing now is after knight g7, pawn to e5, king d5, king f4, king d4. So we are stopping the king. The king has to move backward off to push the pawn. White push the pawn, and this is the last trap. Now if knight takes c6, king f5, knight g7, king f6, king knight e8, king e7, attacking the knight. So the knight has to go back to g7, king f7, attacking the knight again, knight f5, and g7. And here it's winning for white. So this could be a very, very big mistake to take this pawn. But Maxime sees that. He goes king d5, pawn e7, and king to e6. So now the pawn is safely grabbed by the bishop. King e4, safely taken. King e7, king e5. So you have the opposition, but after king e8, king d5, king d7, black is taking back the opposition and will just move the king backward and go to win the h4 pawn step by step. The thing is that you don't have king to e6, and if you go king f6, attacking the knight, it's the same story. King f8, getting the opposition, by example, king e5, king e7, king d5, knight to f5 now, grabbing the pawn, by example, king e4. We win the pawn, then we go back to g6, king f7, and pawn h4. And this is just over. So a very good game by Maxime Vachier Lagrave. He's really performing good lately. It could be a contender now. I mean, he's in the last, he's in the quarterfinal. So I mean, anyone can win from now on. And it was really impressive today with black. Very great endgame technique. So let's see what happens. Already 33 minutes just for a game, so this is a very good analyze. I'm going to leave you for today. Don't forget that you can like or share the videos. Have a nice day. Bye.